Hello, everyone. My name is Echeverria, and welcome to the annual Hope Breakfast. I would like to thank the Lambda Education Foundation, as well as Brother Ellis and the brothers at the Lambda chapter, for providing me this opportunity to speak at today's event. I'm honored to stand here this morning both as a brother of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, by the way of Alpha Pi chapter, as well as an MLK scholar at the University of Louisville. We're here today to celebrate the late and great Brother Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the legacy that he's been survived by. Brother King became a member of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated by way of the Sigma chapter, seated in Boston while he was working to attain his doctorate of philosophy. This began one of the main chapters of Dr. King's life that has impacted so many of us in this room today. And on days such as today, storytelling is key in the way that his legacy will be remembered, built upon, and carried on. It's human nature to inquire as to how people find themselves in the positions they are in. Perhaps something as precarious as an individual stuck between a rock and a hard place, or how a young boy from Atlanta goes to Morehouse at 15, becomes a reverend, earns his doctorate of philosophy, and becomes a member of the greatest fraternity on earth, all by the age of 25. But they each leave the question of what were the events? What were the moments that led up to that action? Not minutes prior, not days and not mere months, but years. It is a question that myself and so many others have found ourselves asking over the years. How did we get here? How did we get here? How have we found ourselves amidst a pandemic, a fighting against racial injustice, and a year where both our country's capital was raided and our country's president got banned from Twitter, all within a span of 2 years? Or how did a man, the most hated person in a country of 200 million people, come to have a federal holiday in honor of him that we now celebrate almost 54 years after his assassination? How did we get here? Well, my father tells you that all good stories start in the middle. That they don't start at the beginning and they certainly don't start at the end. And right now we are in the middle of something. A moment in time that requires the best of each of us to prevail. I began doing community organizing work here in Louisville in the spring of 2019. And in the past 3 years as an organizer in this city, I've seen young people mobilize and build community to do amazing things. Things that will last my memory a lifetime. But I can't begin to tell you the number of times that myself and my comrades have been told by people from older generations that the work that we're taking part in and the work that we're helping to build brings them hope for the future. And while we do aim to inspire, it is a burden placed upon us. Not by our peers, not by our parents, our community, or even our ancestry, but by the structural and societal failures that we found ourselves in the midst of. I say this not to say that hope cannot be found in the most beautiful places, but that too often it is found in the cracks and in the crevices of the structure in which so many black and brown people seem to all too conveniently fall through. I've spoken to you all about hope. I'd also like to speak to you all about love. In reflecting upon these past couple of years, I came across a journal entry that I wrote in the fall of 2020. It was written on September 23rd, the day that the verdict of the Breonna Taylor case was announced to the city and to the world. I wrote on many things that day. I wrote about my frustrations. I wrote on anger. I wrote on love. And I wrote about my fear. I wrote about love and the ways in which we interpret and experience love. I made a differentiation between the words and the saying, I love you, and the feeling, the emotion of love. See, the emotions attached to a word such as love can become a catalyst for change far greater than any one person. It is my belief that it's that feeling of love that allows us to experience and feel hope. I wrote about my fear. My fear for my loved ones, my fear for those around me that I built community with over the years, my fear for the organizing spaces that have been cultivated through a very violent and very traumatizing summer. But more than anything, I feared that we would forget, that we would fail to reflect upon those moments in time in which we felt love, in which we felt hope. For this story began long before Brother King, will last much longer than myself, but it is those moments in time which we feel love for one another and see community being built that we're fueling the fire for the fight to come. Here in Kentucky, here in Louisville, the fire has been burning for quite some time. This city has a place in the story and in the legacy of Dr. King. Not only was Dr. King's brother Alfred a pastor at Zion Baptist Church, but he understood that organizers, such as Ann and Carl Braden, who called Louisville their home, will be an essential in his work moving forward. I remember my first organizer training that I helped to facilitate back in 2019. It was actually held in the Carl Braden Memorial Center off of West Broadway. I remember feeling nervous, feeling anxious about the outcome of the event and the training. But soon I recognized that the people who came out to those trainings week after week after week were there to learn, with the hope that they could do something to help their community. But it wasn't until about a year later that I would better understand that training facilitated in that very center was yet another aspect of the foundation that's been built over the years and generations in this city that we call Louisville. The late Bell Hooks was and is a critical part of that foundation. Born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, she is yet another pillar of this work, and both she and Dr. King spoke and wrote about beloved community. In Bell Hooks' words, beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation. By each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. And as we are building community and fighting for the future, it must be a future where spaces are being created so that individuals are not only able to feel safe in their claiming of identities, but celebrate them. And create a community where we are not only able to acknowledge the cultural legacies that shape who we are, but be educated on them. For how we live in the world should not be something that is shaped through the structures that this present society has deemed satisfactory, but it shall be shaped through the feeling of love and the feeling of hope. Too often we speak about hope as though it may find us as we sleep or lay upon our lap, but rarely do we acknowledge the strength and the sacrifice required to attain such a thing as intangible as hope. Hope is not something you go out and just find. Hope is something you must go out and build towards. Today we not only celebrate the legacy of Dr. King, but we celebrate the strength and the sacrifice of those around him, before him, and those that follow him to form this legacy that has been such a catalyst for change and for hope. So I ask again, how did we get here? Well, it is not without the dreams of Dr. King and his words that moved the world, the writings of Bell Hooks and her understanding of what community should look and feel like, the organizing of Ella Baker and her unapologetic efforts that earned her the title Mother of the Civil Rights Movement, the courage of Claudette Colvin and her unwillingness to give up a seat on a segregated bus, even as a 15-year-old girl. It is not without the storytelling of Maya Angelou, or Toni Morrison, the poetry of Maya Angelou, and their ability to give us a glimpse of the realities that segregated America brought. It is not without the discernment of my father, the compassion of my mother, and the love that I have felt from so many of my friends and my comrades in this city that I'll be standing here today to speak at the annual Hope Breakfast. So before today ends, I encourage you to reflect. Reflect upon those times when you felt love, in which you felt hope, and find ways to build upon that feeling. Whether it's through the mentorship of a young person, the organizing of events, advocating in your workspace, or reading a book, take that feeling you have today and utilize it towards the building of something tomorrow. Thank you.